So for our next option that we're looking at here, we have what's called the head-to-head criterion, which again should be pretty self-explanatory based on the name. We're talking about running things into each other and seeing what wins the most. Something like pairwise comparisons is designed to fit this well. Or if we want to be a little bit more specific, we could say that the head-to-head criterion states if a candidate is favored when compared separately, that is, head-to-head, with every other candidate, they should be the winner of the election. So let's get an example for seeing when that might not be the case. For this, 22 people are asked to taste test and rank 3 different toppings, A, B, and C, and keeping them anonymous, to go on a pizza. The results are shown on the following table, where we want to discuss which is favored over all the others using a head-to-head comparison, and then which would win via plurality. So, for a head-to-head comparison, we can go through each of these 3 things, where because we have 3 options, we would have 3 times 2 over 2, or 3 comparisons. So for A versus B, and I should put a 1 up there, we have that A is favored in columns 1 and 3, so A gets 12 votes, which means A wins. Then for A versus C, we can see here that A is favored in columns 1 and 4 for another 12 votes out of that possible 22, which means A wins again. And then finally, for B versus C, not that it really matters, because A has already won 2 of them and there are only 3 possible. But just to be sure, we have that B would win columns 1 and 4, while C wins columns 2 and 3. So, because columns 1 and 4 have 12 votes, B would win there, but like we said, that's not very important because A would win based on pairwise comparison. On the other hand, if we use the plurality method, we can see that C wins columns 2 and 3. C wins 10 ballots, while we have that A only wins 8 and B wins 4. So in this case, despite the fact that it lost actually every, really both, of the head-to-head comparisons that were made with it, C would win via a plurality vote, via the simplest vote possible, because it got the majority of the votes cast. It got, well, not the majority, but it got the plurality of the votes cast. So perhaps C is either a little bit basic or a little bit controversial, because the people who don't like it really don't like it, but the people who do want it really want it, so they put it at the top, whereas those otherwise, which was the majority, put it at the bottom. But I guess they'd be getting pineapple on pizza because those 10 of them really want it. That's how this sort of thing can go wrong. Where again, we've seen that this makes sense as a thing to look for, just like the majority criterion made sense as a thing to look for, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen. And the next thing we're looking at is one of these criteria that's a little bit less clear and is a little bit more in the context of outside influences, outside things changing or not changing, and seeing what effect that is supposed to have through what's called the monotonicity criterion.